Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Licensed Arborist Trespassed on my property and destroyed my 15-year-old tree without permission." Still to this day, I cannot wrap my mind around why someone would come onto another person's property and maim their trees without permission. I have always taken great pride in my yard, and I enjoy tending to the flower beds and grooming the 15-year-old eucalyptus tree that resides on the eastern half of my property. I am a bit of a botany nerd and perhaps subconsciously purchased this home partially because of the eucalyptus tree. It is just fabulous. It is mature and weepy with hanging branches that really catch the morning sunrise perfectly. I have a beautiful bay window in my kitchen that overlooks the tree and the sun, and it honestly couldn't be more perfect some days. My neighbors also have a beautiful yard, but they have a gentleman named Greg that has taken care of it for as long as I have lived here, which is going on 8 years. He has always been respectful and nice, and in the winter time he would even clear my driveway. He knows that I don't have a husband, and I have always appreciated his generosity. One day I left to run some errands and take care of other business, and when I came home I realized very quickly that my poor eucalyptus tree had been butchered. It was almost like a personal attack. My heart hurt when I saw the pathetic and bare state it was in. These long and weepy branches take years to grow, and they have been cut back carelessly. I was full of disbelief and then anger as I wanted to find out what had happened. It was Tuesday and Greg was often overworking on my neighbor's yard on that day. However, he was gone by the time I got home. I managed to get a hold of my neighbors and asked them if they thought Greg had anything to do with it, and they assumed no, but said that they would check for me. The missus called me back a few hours later and said that he did indeed admit to cutting my tree. They were both very sorry for the damage to the eucalyptus tree and said that they would find a new landscaper to do their work. They never would have condoned that if they realized it was happening. They also mentioned that Greg is apparently a licensed landscaper and arborist too. This is crazy to me because he did such a poor job of trimming my tree. This made me even more angry. He should know better, not to mention that the branches were cut very far back, much farther than the property line, which I know they have the right to trim if it is on their side. I managed to get a hold of a different licensed arborist to come and assess the damage done to the tree. Thankfully, this woman informed me that the tree should survive the assault, but it will take many years for it to grow back most of the branches that he removed. She said that she felt like the damage was around $5,000. Before I decided to contact any lawyers, I wanted to talk with Greg first. It took several days and many ignored phone calls before he finally answered. I could tell that he knew that it was me the whole time and that he was avoiding me. His tone was impatient and grouchy right away. Before I could get too many words in, he started accusing me of having him fired from my neighbor's job and that I would end up costing him more money if I did not leave him alone. After I was finally able to discuss my eucalyptus tree, he stated that he did me a favor when he trimmed the branches. When I asked him why he would do this, he said that he was sick and tired of the stupid branches hitting him in the face when he was mowing the grass. I understand that would be frustrating, but I wouldn't say that it is a good enough reason to destroy my tree. He started to get short with me when I mentioned that the arborist I hired said there was at least $5,000 worth of damages done. He proceeded to say that my professional did not know what they were talking about and that he could come over to the house and remove the eucalyptus branch from my ass if I wanted him to. I hung up on him and continued to fume. I could not even get over what a POS he was being. He couldn't even just admit that he was wrong. I went onto the neighborhood app called Nextdoor and mentioned on the landscaping section that Greg had been a reputable gentleman until he butchered my eucalyptus tree. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I know it can affect his livelihood. Well, he was quick to contact me on his own this time.
I will sue you for defamation of character and slander if you say one more thing about me on Nextdoor or any other media.
From there, I told him that I would report him to the licensing agency for landscapers and arborists, that I really only wanted an apology and admittance of guilt. He instead began shouting obscenities and other things at me, clearly seeing red at this point. We screamed at each other for a moment and one of us hung up first, not sure which. I do realize that I was more angry and hurt by Greg cutting my eucalyptus tree branches. Thankfully, it would survive the event but would be far less attractive for a while. I had managed to groom the tree and keep it in excellent shape for so long. I was even more annoyed about the whole thing because I was very fastidious about keeping it looking nice and maintaining the limbs and overhanging branches. I know for a fact that cutting them back was not doing me or my frickin' tree any favors. After receiving a nasty text message from Greg a few days later, I decided that I would pull the trigger on suing him for damages. His text said that he would come and cut down the entire tree if I did not keep my name out of his mouth, and that I would need to be watching my back for costing him money. I found this to be a threat, so I was going all in after that. I found a good lawyer who was my friend's son, James, a handsome and successful young man who was excited to help me with my case. It did not take too long of gathering information, and thankfully my neighbors across the street had cameras that captured Greg cutting my tree limbs. We made quick work of him in the courtroom. It is hard to deny video evidence and a written statement by my neighbors confirming him admitting to doing the damage. He originally was going to argue and say that he didn't do it, but once he found out that there was camera footage, he decided to change his tune. The judge awarded me the $5,000 and a restraining order because of his text message telling me to watch my back. James was able to find me the licensing organization that handles landscapers and arborists, and I reported Greg to them. They agreed that the destruction of my poor eucalyptus tree was unacceptable and something that a licensed professional should not do. He was reviewed by their professional board and put on probation for his offense. I was overall very pleased with the way things turned out. While dealing with the entire ordeal did cost me time and money, I was happy that me and the eucalyptus tree were able to have some justice for what was done that day. In no other way, shape or form is it ever acceptable for someone to come onto another person's property and damage anything. Greg may have been a nice guy in the past and I didn't mind the snow shoveling, but that is probably because he wasn't coming through and destroying anything. I also think that probation was an appropriate solution for what happened. I wouldn't want to ruin his entire career and take away his livelihood. I just hope that he has learned his lesson from this mistake. And yeah, guys, I would love to hear from you. If you would have been in OP's shoes, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have been this calm and actually nice with Greg, or would you have insisted on a little bit more, let's say, revenge? Let us know in the comments about what you would have done, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could also post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled Refuse to Give a Refund, Revenge Time. Story time. Last September my wife had planned a wonderful Father's Day present for me. Father's Day is in September in Australia. This was to be my first ever Father's Day as a new dad. So, to mark the occasion, my wife had arranged to have our daughter's face laser etched onto a dog tag. However, the day before Father's Day she received the item back and it was, shall we say, subpar. And yeah guys, you can see the picture of the daughter on the dog tag, and indeed it is what I would call subpar. So she came to me and showed me my present early. Now I've had some experience with crappy retailers before and remember to always come prepared when disrupting the quality of any goods and services. So I set my phone to record all audio and approached the retailer. I explained that my wife was upset at the quality of the engraving, and rightfully so. I requested a refund and was immediately met with resistance. To begin with, they blamed the quality of the photo we provided. Then when I disputed that, they said that laser engraving doesn't do depth very well and some faces can end up with some shadows missing. End of conversation. They refused a refund and threatened to call security if I did not leave. The engraver is located in a mall that I also happen to work in. My wife and I left straight away a less than glowing review on their Google page. This was met with accusations of us being unreasonable and threatening violence. Ours was not the only review to which they had this response. They informed us that the matter had been passed on to the local police and that a restraining order had been applied for. We immediately called all local police stations and were delighted to hear that they had never heard of the company in question. After some thought and me being the stubborn old guy that I am, I decided to forward the matter on to the local small claims tribunal. A month or so passed and our day in the tribunal had arrived. We honestly were not expecting the engraver to show up, but lo and behold, there he was. At a civil claims court in camo pants and a hoodie. We met in a room with a mediator who told us that it may not be worth chasing a $40 refund from someone who is in short a dickhead. She warned that it may end up costing more than the service to begin with, but as mentioned before, I'm a stubborn person. We pushed forward, opting to go to the hearing. This is when we heard some marvelous news from the engraver. "Oh, I'm not prepared to go to the hearing today. I haven't gotten any of my evidence." Ding ding ding. We went to a hearing that day, the registrar ruled in our favor and issued a notice of payment. The business was to pay us $40 within 2 weeks. So, 2 weeks later. No payment, no surprise. During this time I had been communicating via email with the holder of the engraver's lease, who, in response to my complaint among many others, had decided to terminate the lease, effectively kicking the engraver out of the mall. While the engraver was organizing a new venue for his business, I had filed a motion for a writ for levi of property, meaning the local sheriff was able to enter his premises and relieve him of merchandise to the value of the refund plus court fees, now totaling $139. I informed the engraver, asking him if he would like to settle like a reasonable person or have the sheriff pay him a visit. He was not a reasonable person. And here a screenshot of the conversation. "Just so you know, you now owe us $139 due to failure to pay in time for the original order. Would you like to sort this out like a civilized person, or would you prefer I send the sheriff to your new shop to repossess some items to cover the cost? Go for the gold, mate. That's not how the law works." Once the writ had been issued, the fee then increased to $225. All I had to do was wait. And wait I did, until March 13 this year, when the sheriff finally attended his new business premises. He was offered an ultimatum: pay the fee or have merchandise repossessed. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. The man paid. He was stubborn for 6+ months over a $40 refund, only to be down $225 plus $5 interest. And the last one is titled Church Camp Adventures. So, a few years ago, I was a worker for this Baptist summer camp not far from my home. We will just call it what it is. It was hell. I had been a devoted staff member for 3 years, even managing the concession stand for one of them. I was a hard worker, consistently jumping in to do jobs nobody really wanted, like trash, pulling weeds, restocking vending machines, etc. On top of that, I was generally the favorite staffer of the kids that rolled through the camp. Now, camp policy was for staff to live on campus when they were working, which was for most staff a weekday only ordeal. Those of us that worked weekends had to request it. I did this frequently as I genuinely loved the work I was doing. I even worked the off-season as much as I could. Midway through my 3rd summer in hell, I ended up with a really bad inner ear infection, so I took my allotted week off to recover. Toward the end of the week, I was asked to be on call for the weekend. I did not have my driver's license at the time, and my family was going 3.5 hours out of town for the weekend, so I requested to stay on campus in case I was needed. I was told this was not a problem, but that was incorrect. It should have also been said that my father had my house key, as he had lost his. 2 hours after arriving on Friday, I am called down to the dining hall where the week staff was having their final meeting to receive paychecks and debrief. I think nothing of this. I come walking into the dining hall, thrilled to see my companions for the first time in a little over a week, to find the owner of the camp, we will call him Phil, And I would also like to add that this man is the senior pastor of his church. He is also a racist, sexist, homophobic piece of work that thinks he can get away with murder because he is old and well off, sitting with the entire staff. Phil asks me to come sit with him and I oblige. As far as I was aware, he was pretty fond of me, so I was not concerned. I was wrong to think that way. The following conversation unfolded in front of roughly 30 of my coworkers. Phil, insert my name here.
What are you doing here, pal?
Me? I was asked to be on call, sir. I was told I could stay on campus since my family is out of town for the weekend. Phil.
I see. Well, we don't need you. You can go home.
Me? Actually, I can't. My family is out of town. My dad has my house key and I don't drive. Phil.
I'm sorry to hear that. You will have to find somewhere to go then, but you cannot stay here.
Me, very calm through this whole ordeal. Phil, I don't have anywhere I can go. Phil.
Again, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's not really my problem, is it? You should have thought this one through.
So at this point, the entire room has gone silent. All of my coworkers are watching on in shock, completely unsure of how to react to this. Phil notices. Phil.
You know what? I'm sorry. You can stay here, OP, but I'm going to work you hard and you will be working for the housing alone. I won't be paying you and you will have to figure food out.
He then looks to the staff, who are even more horrified now, and addresses them.
Am I being unfair? Do you all think this is reasonable?
Meanwhile, I am fuming. My face is probably very visibly red, and I would love nothing more to explode, but I do my best to stay calm through this whole thing. I say I will figure something out and I leave without another word. That night was spent sleeping on the side of the road just off property. The next day, I started forming my plan. My parents are aware of the situation and want desperately to come get me, but I refuse this. I spent Saturday hiding in my coworker's room. They were checking my room for me like I was some kind of criminal, and Sunday night I sleep in my room because at this point I just really don't give a damn. Monday morning, I make my way into the dining hall out of uniform and take a seat. When the whole staff is present, I stand. It was my day to deliver our devotional, so nobody really thought anything of it. My speech was as follows. My fellow staff members, you were all present on Friday to witness the way I was treated by our loving and fearless leader, Phil. I'm sure many of you were uncomfortable through the course of our conversation, but I want you all to be assured that I got along just fine. Did I resort to sleeping on the side of the road like an animal? Yes. Did I hide on campus the rest of the weekend, having to beg someone to sneak food to me? Again, yes, but that's alright. I must ask you, though, if Phil has no problem treating me this way after giving 3 years of my life to this camp, how do you think he's going to treat you? He was more than happy to put me on the street for a weekend knowing I had nowhere to go, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that does not seem very Christian-like to me. So endure his mistreatments as long as you want, but I think I've had enough. I quit. Phil, F you. I sincerely hope you rot in hell. And with that, I walked out the door with 10 of my coworkers right behind me. The following week, I caught wind of another 15 quitting after enduring half an hour of Phil crap-talking me to the staff. The camp was left with maybe 6 employees as a group of 850 campers was coming through, and I had honestly never felt so powerful before. And yeah, ripe stars, this story just reminded me of r/church drama, which we have read many times in the past, and I'm curious if you would like to hear more church drama stories, because for me personally, these stories made me feel a little bit of nostalgia and I really like them. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.